It's,
Hey, hi,
it's
Susan.
early morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm
That's
doing pretty good.
that's good. You're
Yeah.
looking good. I've
I
noticed
know. Look, this
your
is my
hair.
COVID hair. It's like I
I
haven't had a haircut since October, and all natural now. So
yes.
yeah,
Uh,
rocking the COVID pretty good.
yeah, I haven't had my hair cut since forever, and that's why you curl the ends, and then you don't keep.
Oh, I see. I see. I'll remember that trick.
Yes, yes. So I noticed that I guess it's the bandwidth and the use because normally I do these meetings during the mornings and I noticed
Right.
it's
Okay.
looking a little grainy. It seems like everyone and their brother must be on the internet right now, but I'm so happy you could join me and I hope it's not too early for you.
No, not too bad. It's probably been the earliest I've got up in a long time. Had to get up at what 8:30. I have the pleasure of not working at the moment, so
Yeah.
yeah. So there's no alarm clock set today. Yeah, had to set the alarm. So that's a new experience.
I have a canine alarm clock, so it doesn't
Ah,
matter what time I set the alarm for. It has no bearing on him, right?
absolutely no.
So, yeah, and so normally I do these chats live, but what I'm going to be doing today right now is recording it, and then I'll put it on Facebook tomorrow because they usually go around 11:30 in the morning, which I certainly couldn't ask you to join me at 11:30 Eastern time because that would be what 1:30 in the morning for you.
Yeah, something like that. But the way things are going, some mornings I'm still up at 1:30. The clock is just not
Yeah,
happening. Not happening at all.
because it's a lovely Thursday evening here, but you have Friday morning.
Yes,
And
yep.
it's a
So we've got sunshine, which is
yeah,
good.
yeah. We've got the sunset. We're sending it. Well,
Nice, nice.
not quite. And yeah, and our summer, we're still in the thick of summer, which I really enjoy. But I took a look at your winter. It's not too bad.
No, not compared to your standards.
No,
We've
no,
had we had a cold week last week, which was the highest was probably 9 Celsius. We don't get snow in Melbourne,
no.
um, and yeah. So and the week before we had sort of 15, and yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day. So nothing like Canada. Absolutely nothing like Canada.
Oh gosh, I can tell you it. So I think when I looked online, it said it was going to be like 13 today there, and I thought, okay,
Yeah.
13. I'm going to see kids playing road hockey in shorts. You know,
13
it's 13. I'm out there. Yeah.
No, 13 for us will be cardigans and possibly a coat. We,
Well,
we feel we feel it, but saying that, if the sun's out, we don't get the Arctic breeze as much. We get two lots of weather come through. So if we get the Arctic breeze, it's quite chilly.
mhm.
So but if it comes from the other side, we're quite warm. It's quite humid.
Yeah.
So it's nice. Yeah.
So I've been following. At first, I was following along with a friend of mine in Sydney. You know, we just talk about current affairs, and so I've been often curious what's going on there. So I'll Google and see what's happening down there. And I must say, what's happening in that neck of the woods is not all that much different than what's happening here in most of Canada. But where you are in the state of Victoria, specifically Melbourne, you're really having to deal with the pandemic.
Yeah, we took a real hit. We all of Australia sort of rode the first wave, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the states are still at zero. Sydney sort of took a little bit of a hit with the breach of quarantine, and their numbers went up, and Victoria was quite low. But it was like 90 days ago where it was discovered a breach of our quarantine because and predominantly 99% of our COVID cases are from overseas travel.
Right.
So yeah, so basically there was a breach. Everyone that comes in goes into hotel quarantine for 2 weeks,
Yes.
and there was a breach there, so someone got out, and not so much someone got out, but someone didn't follow the Sorry, what was that?
I heard that someone got busy.
Yes, they did get very busy. And the inquiry showed, and because of that breach, we've now got an inquiry, so we're finding out a bit more. But yeah, someone did get a little excited in that sort of breach, and went home and sort of spread it. So that sort of triggered that second wave, which we're in at the moment. And our numbers went from below 10 a day to 760.
That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking.
So when you've worked so hard and you see that the rest of the country being at 0 or less than 10, and knowing that you got to that point, and then this just turned. So there was a couple of hot spots, and I was in one of the hot spots. So we were put into lockdown first, or stage 3 with tighter restrictions. So we went from having allowed 10 people in the home to 1 person. And we could go out for 4 reasons. So our shopping for essential things. So it could be food, it could be going for a jigsaw puzzle, it could be something to get something for the kids because they're homeschooled. And being able to go regional. We were allowed to sort of go further than our home, but not doing overnight stays and things like that. A week later, the numbers kept going up. So then they introduced stage 4. And stage 4 brought the mandatory masks, the curfew. We all have to be in by 8 o'clock or we get into trouble.
Yes.
So you need a permit between 8 o'clock and 4 a.m. You need a permit if you need to be on the road, and that permit will only be issued if it's required for work. No other reason. We're allowed out the house for 1 hour a day for exercise. And 1 hour for shopping. And now the shopping, all our retail is closed, where the previous stage 3, the cafes were closed, but you could do takeaway. And stage 3, you could go to and sit in a restaurant where there was 20 people spread out, or depending on the size. So stage 4 means that was all shut down totally.
Oh my gosh.
So you can't even go and get a takeaway coffee. There are a few places that do the takeaway, so it's not. It depends on your store or what type of setup you've got. Takeaway food we're allowed to get, but we're not allowed to go out and get it after 8 o'clock. We've actually got to. Whoops, I've lost you. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so we can go out and get takeaway, but we're not allowed to go out after 8 o'clock. So therefore, it has to be delivered.
Okay. So the people that are able to deliver it, I gather they have the permits and they're allowed. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So now I'm sure everyone knows where Melbourne is, but it's in the south, so
yes,
not quite as cold
the best part of Australia.
The best part. Yeah. Well,
yes.
I was just going to say it was in the best part of Australia. And here's a little chart where you could see it just spiked. It absolutely spiked. And that's what made them jump to stage 3 and then stage 4. Now, this is an older picture from July. It's about 6 weeks old. Were you seeing a lot of that where there's the police are stopping vehicles and checking everyone?
Yeah, so in that was it's a vehicle check going outside of the Melbourne Metro area. So Melbourne Metro was put into stage 3, but none of the rest of the state. So the rest of the state could still do their walks and their cafes and things like that within a lesser stage 3. But in the tighter stage 3, we weren't allowed, if you were in a hotspot, to go into the region. So we're talking 40 minutes drive from home. So those would actually be checked at that point. So that's got more now because of the stage 4 to stage 3. Now,
I'm being a dog person,
yes.
Last week I was speaking with a friend of mine. She was a New Yorker that had lived in Canada and now lives in Amman, Jordan. I said, "What are you doing with your dog?" And she goes, "Well, my dog is paper trained." And I thought, okay, well, that's great for you, but I have a 75-pound husky. I don't know how much paper I'm going to need for that. And,
Yes.
these slides are basically going over the various things you were discussing. But what do you do with this 1 hour? I mean, what if my dog wants out again? What do you do?
Well, I don't have a dog.
I know.
But basically, so you can't leave your property. So obviously you could walk the dog out if it needed to go. I don't know how the apartments get on.
That's
Yeah, I don't know how the apartments get on, but but I would imagine they could come down to the front, but they wouldn't be able to go any further than that. Even though it's an hour out, most people, we're not being pulled over by the police, being checked to make sure we're out for an hour, etc. But we're all pulling it in together. So you'll find most people will follow those rules. Most people don't want to be out. We just want to get this knocked on its head so we can get back to some sort of normal. So
I would
locally,
imagine that. Yeah.
yeah. So so I'd say with the apartments, they probably just take their dog down to where they would normally do. And then sort of just go straight back home. There's a limit to how many people can go in an elevator at a time and those type of things. So yeah, with 90 days, we've got it pretty well under control. Is what we're allowed to do and what we're not. So
because I was just taken aback when I was reading up on this, and it was saying, I was reading that stage 4 is in place right now until the 13th of September.
Yeah.
And I just know how lucky we are. We're so lucky here. And there's a whole other set of restrictions for businesses. And this, I mean, the slide is basically just to show the wealth of information. And I looked on the websites, and they're amazing. They're a quick and concise, simple read. You don't go to these sites that your government has put out and wondered, well, where do I find this? Where do I find that? They are very well laid out. There's just a wealth of information. And
yeah, I must admit the government is doing an exceptional job considering they haven't done this type of thing before. We get notified every day, every morning at the same time that our numbers today are 173.
That's very good.
Which is excellent. And our deaths rates have dropped, and we've had sadly 8 today, but they were getting up to the high teens. So what we're doing is working, but we do get notified every day from the government. The Prime Minister comes up when there's anything important to be said. He's there, and they don't shut the news reporters down. They actually allow the news reporters to ask as many questions as they like, and when the news reporters have asked all their questions, that's when they leave. Mm-hmm. So the other morning, when there was a lot of change, the meeting with Dan Andrews, which is our Premier or Governor, depending on which country you come from, those talks normally take maybe half an hour. The other morning it was 90 minutes. So, So you can hear live exactly what they're saying. So you're not having to interpret newspaper reports and things like that, which is pretty good. So yeah.
So from this slide, my takeaway is that if you can't come out, they'll come to you.
Yeah, for the vulnerable. So for the older folk that and mobility issues, disabled, you just need to ring, and they'll actually send the nurse out to come and take the swab for you. So you don't have to go out there.
Fabulous. Yeah. That is fabulous.
So I mean, they find where the holes are, and then they sort of fill the holes. So they found that we were getting a lot of people getting infected in workplace industries like abattoirs and things like that.
Yes.
And it was the lower paid people that were sort of still going to work because they did, and casual people because they didn't have sick pay, so they didn't have the money to support themselves. Mm-hmm. So the Victorian government said, okay, well, we need these people to stay at home. So we actually have a payment now that if you've been tested, you get 2 days paid, which is $400 for the 2 days if you don't have any sick pay. Mm-hmm. And then if you are tested positive, then you get a $1,500 payment for 2 weeks if you don't have sick pay. So
Okay.
no one needs to go to work and be financially sort of disadvantaged, I suppose, even though some might have high wages and things. It's enough to get you over the line. So, yeah.
Right. And I noticed you have an app. We have an app. I have it on my phone as well. It's purely voluntary here as well. And, you know, the way I see it, I'm doing my part. We all have to pull together and do our part. And yeah, I was wondering about that 1,500. So if you find that you are positive, they will pay you.
If you don't have sick pay, yes.
If you don't have sick pay, that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. Because you don't want people going out and risking their lives and risking the lives of others.
And yeah, and it's the vulnerable that are at risk here. It's sort of where most of our deaths have been people in their 70s to 100. We've had a few in their 30s and 20s, and a few in their 50s and 60s. Yeah. But predominantly it's the older folk, and they're the ones we want to protect. And the last thing you want to do is to sort of have someone pass and not be able to hold their hand. And that's what COVID does. So
we had a terrible rash of cases in seniors' residences, in nursing homes, and sadly we lost a lot of people, and the conditions were just, they were not commensurate to what you would expect in a first world nation. It was just terrible what was going on, and there's all kinds of there's inquiries going into that. But some of the nursing homes are better than others, and the ones here, any nursing home that's affiliated with a nonprofit group, they have been pretty darn good. It's the for-profit nursing homes that had seen a lot of deaths. That's not to say there wasn't COVID-19 in the not-for-profits. I mean, my parents are in a not-for-profit nursing home, and my mother actually did test positive.
She's okay?
She's one of those asymptomatic people.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, she tested 2 or 3 times positive. And there was COVID-19 on the floor of her nursing home. But she came through. And
excellent. Glad to hear.
It's wonderful. And also, well, this is not unusual. Many nations have their borders are closed, and I guess only those that are repatriating are allowed back in.
Yeah, we had our borders closed pre the announcement of the pandemic, the official announcement. It was back in. I was fortunate enough to have some American and Canadians come out and visit. So all of January was lovely. I could sort of showed them around the city and had a blast. And I suppose that was a good way to sort of start off this crazy year. Yes. Because late January, early February, there was noise of the pandemic. And being close to the Asian countries, our government closed our borders down 2 weeks ahead of the pandemic being announced. So we were already restricting people that could come in. And then for, I think it was about 2 months. And then after 2 months, it was a hard lockdown that unless you were a resident, you couldn't come in. You can't go out. You can't leave the country unless you have a permit, unless you have an exceptional reason why you go out. And then it was probably, when was it? Probably June? May, June, that the state started to close their borders because we've got 0 cases in Western Australia, Northern Territory, Tasmania, and they've been 0 for several months. So they have really tight closures. Queensland's just had a couple of new cases. We had a few girls in their 20s that, again, just wanted a bit of a party, so they flew down to Melbourne, took COVID back. So they've been actually, the fines to do that are massive in Queensland, so they'll face court. But they're being charged with fraud because they lied on the document coming back into Queensland. They didn't isolate. So they basically broke all the rules. So Queensland hit hard, but because of that, we're in our own little bubble, even within our own country. So
Yeah, and but I see that there's 14 days quarantine again when you come back home. Now, are they asking you to quarantine in your home, or are they still using the quarantine hotels?
no, the hotel. The hotels were introduced because after the first couple of weeks, they couldn't rely on people staying home when they were being checked. They weren't home, and
Okay,
there was a so they said nope, that's it, quarantine for into the hotels, and then if you tested positive and you're not an overseas traveller, you quarantine at home. But now in stage 4 and stage 3, the people will check up on you every day to make sure you're home.
I kind of wish we had done that. I know at the beginning when people were coming back from the stricken cruise ships and certain destinations, they were going to force it to bases, to military bases. And they were kept there for 14 days before going home. And now it's just on your honor. And
Yeah.
Canadians can travel. We can travel. If I
Oh,
want,
okay.
if I want to get on a plane and go to Mexico, I can. I can go to Las Vegas, but I will have to face a 14-day quarantine
Right.
on my own in my home, and not everyone's willing to do the 14 days, so we're pretty much staying put.
Yeah,
And
I think it's a wise move.
right, and so I see there is the ban on travel, and
Yes.
that is it for my presentation.
Well done, you.
Such as it is. So I got to figure out, I got to stop share. I'm learning. I'm
Ah,
learning how to
there
do
we
these.
go.
I thought I
You'll
had
be
put down
you'll
the
be a
wrong.
superstar soon.
I'm working at it. It's a work in progress. What can I say? But I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with me, Susan, because I know that your experience is going to be very different from the experience of many, many North Americans. I mean,
Even within Australia,
mhm,
to give you an idea. So we went into stage 4. My nieces were due to get married
yes.
on the Friday. We went into stage 4 on the Thursday. So they quickly found their celebrant and got married on the Wednesday, because in stage 4 you're not allowed to get married. It's
Oh, wow.
at all. So you can be in regional, you can be 40 minutes out of Melbourne and still get married. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't live out there, well, then it's not. So marriage was stopped. My partner sold his house, and now he's looking for a rental. Within the 6 weeks, you're not allowed to look at the properties. You're not allowed to go and inspect a property. If you need a rental, you've got to take it on face value. So there's all these other things. And then funerals, you can only have 5 people at a funeral. And that's the only other exception to the rule. So these are all things that are extra tight in stage 4. And you can only be within 5 kilometres of home. And that's when it gets tough, when you see the rest of even 40 minutes from home, people are still going to cafes, and then you go to the top end of Australia and you see people sort of going to the pubs and going to their cafes and visiting families. And my family's 5 minutes away from me. I'm lucky my family's within 5 kilometres. So I get to see my boys, but I don't get to see my grandkids because they can't come for a walk with me.
That,
So there's those added pressures. So we are on a roller coaster, but saying that, we've got the support of the rest of the country. We have ads from celebrities getting on board and just saying, hang in there, Victoria, we know you've got it. So we're getting a lot of positive feedback from everyone, even sort of not seeing people's smiles on the street as well. But there's still the conversations, there's still the laughing. And yeah, I think the bottle shops are doing a massive business at the moment. So
oh my
but
God.
yeah, we'll hang in there. We've only
Yes.
got we got 4 weeks to go, and then hopefully we'll be out of there. And with numbers like 176 today, that and our average is below 300 at the moment. We're doing good. We're doing
Well,
good.
I am glad to hear it. And I want to see you move past this and soon, for everyone's sake, for everyone's mental health. You know, just
Oh,
getting out
absolutely.
there, getting out
Yeah.
there and going for a walk and just picking up a coffee and sitting on a bench and chatting with a neighbor, even if you're 6 feet apart.
Yes.
It's nice. I'm very fortunate here. I have a friend that we walk our dogs in the park. We keep our distance. We go for a walk, and
Lovely.
it's nice that I have the park nearby and I can avail myself of it. And it's not lost on me. It's
Yes.
not lost on me, and I'm most grateful for that. And I want this thing to pass so I can come out and have you show me around Melbourne.
Absolutely. Cool. I was actually, if you look at the calendar today, in 7 days I would have been in Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
If this pandemic hadn't hit. I was spending a month in Seattle and Vancouver and doing a cruise around Alaska. So that's on the back burner. It's
Yeah.
not out of the woods yet, but
I know,
it'll happen. So you'll see me again for sure.
okay, yeah, because I know I had 4 trips. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I was going to cross the pond 4 times in 2020.
Yes.
I was to go in March, and then in May, again at the end of October. And just yesterday, we moved my Christmas markets cruise. I have a group going on the Danube, and we were to go at the
Lovely.
November. And they're marketed predominantly to Americans, this particular cruise line, Alma Waterways, which is lovely. I've been with them before, and we're so looking forward to it. And with the state of affairs right now and some of the people's edginess about travel, we moved it to 2021. So I have 15 months to look forward to that.
Look, as long as I can get go for a drive and do an overnight stay in an hour or two out of town, I'll be happy. And we were told yesterday with Qantas that Qantas aren't looking at international flights till at least July next year. And that won't be to America and Canada. It will be predominantly to bubbles. So they'll form bubbles with people with similar levels of COVID. So like New Zealand and things like that. And then it could be another 6 months to a year after that before the world sort of opened up again. But we've got the vaccine that's being produced over here is looking good. So we're crossing our fingers that that's coming forthwith.
I was going to ask you about the vaccine just before we go. It seems that what I understand from the PM is that he's pretty much stating everyone's going to take it, or hoping everyone will take it. Is there a lot of pushback?
Only the pushback is because of the unknown. The pushback is because it's been developed so quickly. I think most people will jump on board, but it's a case of if they've made a drug out of drugs that are currently being proven to be safe, and they've just blended the two together or things like that, you'll probably find the uptake will be high. If it's a brand new drug where people don't know the full extent, there may be a bit of limitation, but that's what it is. It's not so much people don't want to have it, it's because of the long-term safety element of it. But at the moment it's looking safe. It's looking as though it's using ingredients, I don't know what you call it, but it's looking at using things that we've used in the past. So that's a positive thing. So
well, I hope for everyone's sake it's a go. And
so do I.
And I want to thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you're going to need a second cup of coffee because I got you bright and early in the morning.
It'll be near like, oh yeah, no, there'll be this. I'm on the second one now, so that's all good. But it's been lovely chatting to you. Lovely to know that you're all doing well.
Oh, we're doing just fine here. We're very fortunate. Very, very fortunate.
I was a bit envious last week when I saw you and all the girls It was like, no, I should have been there.
You should have. You should have.
Yeah.
It was lovely to see everyone. And I know
Yeah, no, it's,
I get tested for COVID-19 once every 2 weeks because I
oh,
go
okay.
to seniors res, and
Yes.
to physically go within the building, you have to. I do appreciate that the test gives you a snapshot, a point in time. But nevertheless, if that's all we have, I get one every 2 weeks to prove to them
Yeah.
that I'm negative and have been negative. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to the day when I don't go through that anymore.
Yeah.
Not
That'll be a good thing. That'll be a good thing.
okay, my
Well, you
dear.
stay well.
Thanks for joining me. Stay
Thank
safe
you. It's been lovely.
and have that coffee.
Okay, and everyone stay well. See you on the other side.
Bye bye.
Okay, love to all. Bye.
Bye.